Hi there, and welcome to yet another new episode of Beyond Threats podcast by Bleckmann. As always, I'm your host, Eric Janssen Steinberg, and I will take you on a brief journey to look at what is developing, the trends, new technologies, new services, etc. in fashion and lifestyle, supply chain management and logistics. Today's topics is all about returns, how to properly manage it, how to keep an overview, etc. And for this topic, I am joined by my good friends and colleagues, Peter Veenstra and, of course, Tim de Smet. Thank you for being here, guys.
Thank you for the invite, Eric. It's great to be here.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
We need and we want to pick your brains on the subject matter, so great to have you guys. So, Peter, to kick things off, can you briefly introduce yourself and after that explain to us why having a clear returns policy is so important to the customer journey, customer satisfaction and customer understanding, the subsequent steps.
Yeah, of course. I'm Peter Veenstra, within the transport and logistics industry now for over 20 years. Worked the past 2 years in Bleckmann as program manager for the returns.
Yeah.
So there we specialized in this subject. I would say that over the past years, the significance of the returns journey and therewith also a clear return possibility has significantly grown. You could see by recent market studies that over 50% of consumers check a return policy before making an actual buy.
Yeah.
So it's all about clarity, transparency, and also delivering on that promises.
Yeah, absolutely. I must admit, maybe I'm a supply chain nut, but I always look at the returns procedure policies before I make the actual buy.
I think we all recognize that we do this more and more, and this is only increasing. So it's becoming a necessary thing for a brand to have that clear in place and delivering on what you state there.
So, Tim, to gain the trust of the customers, the consumers, what Peter just said, that transparency is key.
Yeah, that's correct. But let me first introduce myself.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Tim de Smet, working in November 20 years for Bleckmann. Since 8 years, I'm working as a IT transport project manager.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, within Bleckmann, we have our own return solution, own return software, in which I think this is quite unique as a 3PL, in which we have multiple options, multiple ways to create return labels, including the creation of a customized return page, return platform for the end consumer.
Yeah.
It's our goal, my goal, to add as many developments to make the customer, to increase the customer experience feeling towards the end consumer. Mm-hmm. It's not only to the front end, so actually what is the customer sees when he announces his return, let's say, but also be able to offer as much as possible return options for the end consumer. And this is basically with only one goal we have in mind, which is for our retailer, so our customer, that he gains the trust of his customers.
Yeah.
When the customer trusts the retailer, they will simply buy more. And it's not so trust not only in a smoothless outbound process, not only the trust in the products they buy, but also the trust in a seamless returns experience. Trust reduces returns, which I think is the goal of every retailer. So how the return policy is passed to the end consumer is really important because, as Peter mentioned, over 50% of the consumers actually check the return policy before they purchase. So it's really important that the return policy is easy to access, transparent, also translated for international returns. So in general, keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah. Well, and I must admit, that's one of the key pillars on which Bleckmann operates is the fact that it's a true end-to-end process. And so when you talk about trust, there's one single source of truth, and the customer is receiving updates and or looking at a returns platform that has the same look and feel as the actual sales process prior to that. And that's something I'm really proud of in terms of being the supply chain nut that I am. It's that fire and forget segment. So the customer, but also our customer, so the brand selling, has this warm and fuzzy feeling about or around returns. It's no longer a pesky part of the process. It's actually a value-adding part of the process.
Yeah, it's correct. And as I just mentioned, it's really important that the return policy is as simple as possible. Let's say the customer's journey usually starts on the retailer's website, where he then is guided through the return policy to the return platform. And as you just mentioned, it's really important that the return platform has the same look and feel, the same wordings, the same logo, the same, the same background and so on.
Yeah.
As the retailer's website. And it's also our goal to when we create a customized return page for the end consumer, that it really looks like an extension of the retailer's website.
Yeah.
Because again, related to the trust, it can look a bit suspicious that when an end consumer goes to the retailer's webpage and is guided through the return page, that the return page looks totally different compared to the retailer's website. And also very important is that the retailer tries to minimize the amount of actions, clicks that the end consumer has to do before he gets his label.
Absolutely.
So usually the process starts with end consumer has to enter his order ID and his mail address or zip code or any other login combination, where he then sees the items that he wants, where he then sees the items from his initial order. He then selects the items he wants to return, including the return reasons. Also advisable is not to display too many return reasons, and also wise to shuffle them once in a while, because end consumers might be lazy and they just pick the first return reason that they see. Yeah. Once they have completed that, so once they have selected the items they want to return and the return also why, then next step is that they select the return options. So an overview of the possible return carriers and the options, thinking of return label, that they print the return label themselves, that they request a QR code so that the return label is being printed in the Pudo shop or even pick up at home. So it's really important that when the customer is going to has confidence in the retailer, that he will then that he also has confidence in the return policy.
Right. Yeah, and for the listeners and the viewers, a PUDO is an abbreviation for a pickup drop-off location. And so when you go to your Boots or your Bruna, where you drop your product off to be picked up, that's a PUDO location. Looking at that, how would you say that? Simplifying of the overall process. How does technology and innovation come to play?
Technology and innovation, they can significantly enhance the return process to become more cost-effective, more efficient, more consumer-friendlier.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of real-time tracking, so that the customer can actually check the live transport status of his return.
Yes.
I'm checking off smart refunds, so that when the return enter a cross-dock warehouse, that you check the content of that return and that you actually already refund the customer based on that item registration, rather than only refunding the customer when the parcel has been arrived at the final DC, so where the stock is located.
Yeah.
So the customer has his money back on an earlier stage that he can spend again on your website. I'm thinking of sustainable solutions to reduce the environmental impact of returns by an ecological business model, where then the return items can be refurbished, reused, or in the end recycled. I'm thinking of data-driven insights based on analytics of data. So yes, technology and innovation can definitely contribute to a smoother and more sustainable return process.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And Peter, so we at Bleckmann are rather hands-on. We're not reactive. We take the conversations to our customers, the brands that sell the actual products. So what role can we as Bleckmann play to further optimize the returns process of a brand?
Absolutely, Eric. I think that what you see is that we have a very customer-centric approach, which is valid for both the customer but also the retailer. So I think that in that lays our strength, that we really optimize for the both elements of and aspects in there. What we have, for example, been developing also within as an extension of our BRP service is that we have defined over 10 milestones within the customer journey, where we are able to send branded messaging to the end customer.
Right.
And that's also a very great example of having transparency, having a great visibility, so they are always up to date. Being up to date in your information also makes it that customers will less call out to the retailer saying, "Hey, what is the status of my return?" Because you keep them informed, you keep them in the loop.
Definitely.
You make sure that they keep up to date, and that reduces also there with cost on the retailer side. But with the fact that we do that with branded messaging, so it has the logo, it has the look and feel of the retailer, it also makes it that the consumer feels really engaged with the brand.
Yeah.
Hey, you stay in that journey, you are in an email chain, not with Bleckmann, you're in an email chain with the retailer. So that syncs together greatly there. And we see that this is also really supporting the appreciation of the product, and is reducing indeed cost by less calls to a customer contact center. And that's not only about cost, it's also about the experience that you give the customer.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to call to the retailer for their status of the return. Every call that you get there, so to say, is a negative impact on that customer experience that is so key in this.
Yeah, of course. But you give a prime service towards your customer, and by doing so reduce costs and resources need elsewhere in your company, and you tie a company to their customers. I must admit, so when I receive updates like that, it indeed feels like I'm more appreciated, higher regarded by the brand that I buy from. So I think that works. Yeah, I think that works. But all those key moments in that process, you mentioned up to 10 status updates, that generates a lot of data. And Tim, you being the data guru, how can we use that returns data to further improve the returns program based on reporting, analytics, etc.?
Yeah. So during the returns experience, the customer, he has to select the items he wants to return, including the return reason,
of course,
and also he selects his preferred carrier method. So all the data is available, and via analytics, you can check if you can find any pattern to see, and based on that pattern, you can make some small adjustments to try and reduce the amount of returns or to increase the customer experience.
So you mean you can practically spot which products give the most returns, or which material, which sales process?
Yes, definitely. So for example, when you see that lots of items return due to size issues, then by a simple fix, by the size bar on your on the retailer's website, they can reduce the amount of returns.
Right.
When you see that lots of products return due to bad quality, the retailer can contact his supplier with stating, "Hey, I'm receiving lots of returns back due to bad quality." Also, and it's not only related to items, as mentioned, the customers also select their preferred return method, where the retailer can check if, for certain markets, for example, that the customers prefer a QR code rather than a return label. So the retailer can check if, for those specific markets, he can make some more labelless return carriers available. And it's not labelless like in the real sense of words, but it's just labelless that the customer does not have to print the label. So he can just go with the QR code, he receives the QR code, and then the QR code can be printed in the Pudo shop. And also, the retailer might consider of implementing a payment platform so that the end consumer has to start paying for his return label. Not only to try and reduce the amount of returns, but also from a sustainable point of view.
Of course.
And it has proven that more and more customers are actually willing to pay. So the data is there and can provide valuable insights in a better decision making.
But that same decision making will also help to further increase or improve your customer centricity. So what you just mentioned. So that customer centricity in returns can also, again, in its turn, contribute to brand loyalty.
That's absolutely true. In the end, I would say that a key returns and customer journey is only a handful of key elements, which is hassle-free, as we would say. And that is having the availability of, for example, a paperless return solution via a QR code or a certain digit code.
Yeah.
So that nobody has, nowadays, not all people have a printer at home anymore.
Well, I do, but it never works when I need it to work. So I get your drift, yeah.
I have it as well, but I don't want to use it. So, and you see that will, so to say, dry out at some point, I believe.
Exactly.
It's about the clear policy. And then having visibility and being informed. Next to, of course, that you want to have a fast refunding lead time. So we also have an internal focus on the speed of our transport lead times. Where possible in cross-dock locations to the check of the parcel along the way already, so that there is an ASAP refunding option available. That's and I think that are the key elements: the transparency, visibility, and keeping the information flow towards the customers, and make that all in that branded segment, so that it's really like you are engaged with the retailer, and not with some logistics provider. We are on the background, but it should be the retailer's journey that you offer to your brands.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I must underline there again that yes, it's white labeled, so it's under the name of the brand, which makes perfect sense. But yeah, it makes me proud to see that end-to-end solution, and where we actually contribute to the success of a brand by offering the data, by offering the analytics, smooth processing, status updates. Yeah, it's really worth the partnership. Let's say that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much for the valuable insights. I'm afraid that we have already come to the end of this podcast. That's all the time we have. But I think valuable steps for people to maybe follow in, brands and consumers. If there are any questions or discussions point that people would love to reach out to you guys to, how can they reach you?
More info about our own return solution can be found on the Bleckmann website. Via the Get in Touch section, they can ask questions, or if they have any remarks, they can write them over there. And in the end, those questions, remarks will end up with me or with Peter.
Yeah.
Or they can also contact me directly via LinkedIn.
Good.
Yeah. May equal possible. Feel free to reach out, connect via LinkedIn, or reach out through the website. And don't hesitate, I would say.
Yeah, and you can easily tell by my buy-in, my energy here on the table. It's something that is really, really important to me. So whenever I can be of assistance to any of your projects, let me know. You can find me via LinkedIn as well, or through the Bleckmann website. But yeah, this is a topic that we will gladly work with you on. Well, that's somewhat of a kicker for this episode of the Beyond Threads podcast. I hope to see you soon at the next one. Thanks.